Order this work session meeting for Thursday, January 30th. All all three commissioners are present in the Nat UL room. Mr. I have an item to add for item 2, but go ahead with item 1A. Please.
Remind me what 1A.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ordinance 2025-06 to amend Chapter 267, expedited payment of claims.
Yes, and I've been working with our auditor's office. Expedited payment of claims essentially means claims that would be paid before it comes to a commissioner meeting for approval, right? So there's a state code that outlines a lot of these, and we, working with the auditor's office, there's a statement in our local code that says they have to be executed by the president of the Board of Commissioners prior to issuance of those claims. That's not found in state code anywhere. It also is kind of counterintuitive with we're going to have a subset of things that we know are important that essentially we know we're going to approve when it comes to a meeting, and we are going to give you the authority to go ahead and pay those claims in advance. I mean, that's essentially what these are. And so, you know, it doesn't make sense if there is one of the provisions is an emergency is happening. And, you know, it doesn't make sense for that necessarily to have that step, because that step's still going to occur because it still has to come to a commissioner meeting for final approval. This is just a list of things where essentially the commissioners are saying, yeah, we're going to authorize the auditor to go ahead and pay these things prior to us seeing it because of the nature of what they are. And so, you know, they include insurance premiums, or they include a lot of things that if we don't make a timely payment, we are going to have a risk or a harm. They include things where, I'll just go through and tell you what I've added. I've added under D was utility payments or utility connection charges. I just added something that includes just to clarify that those are a utility and that we consider those a utility. This was, from what I could tell, this was last amended like in the 2004, 2005 era. So other changes, expenses that must be paid, I took out of emergency circumstances, and I put the definition of what an emergency is in the code section that allows this, which is a situation that could not reasonably be foreseen and that threatens the public health, welfare, or safety and require immediate action. Just clarifying that an emergency can't be self-created, right? It has to be kind of an external thing. And then the other kind of new one I added is purchase of vehicles, large equipment, and machinery if the order for those were approved by the commissioners at a public meeting, right? So I want you guys to still be in the loop of when they get ordered and approving that, hey, we're going to pay for that. But what we're finding, particularly with sheriff's vehicles, is that we will purchase the sheriff's vehicles, but we don't get the title work until we pay them, which makes perfect sense. But then we're having sheriff vehicles who are running on expired plates because we can't get those, and that seems a little. It just seems wrong, right? Yeah. You know, we issue tickets for that, but we're going to do it. Just. And then in addition, I added a new section that basically says only use these provisions when you need to, and if there's not going to be a harm and there's not going to be a risk, use our regular claims process. So that is kind of what I've been working with the auditor's office about, and I've talked with Jill and Richard on some of these things. That's how the large vehicle thing got put into place, and we think these cover what is necessary, and I think there will be a transition period where people will have to relook at this and make sure what they're doing currently follows it. But I think this gets us closer to, or gets us back on track with how we use emergency claims. The real problem was the auditor's office was getting an extremely large amount of emergency claims, and so we looked at the code section, and a lot of them weren't matching what's in the code section. So there's an educational piece to this. But then we wanted to make sure that, hey, some of these aren't on this list that made sense to include, and so we wanted to add that one to make sure we weren't causing any harm.
My colleagues probably aren't aware of this, but for the last week, there was a discovery of something in the statute that requires that I actually review and approve and sign off on with DocuSign emergency claims. And so I've been getting emails and texts, hey, there you got a new emergency claim. And I think the longest it took me was 2.5 hours to get to a computer because you can't do it on your phone and whatnot. So, so this will eliminate that piece.
There was nothing in state code that required that.
Yeah, it was in our code.
It was a local ordinance.
Yeah, it was in our code, and we weren't following our own code. Yeah. Now we are, but at my detriment. So it would be really sweet to get this done. Questions?
There's just a quick typo in O. There's an extraneous apostrophe with commissioners. And that's my only comment.
So, anything? No? All right, thank you. I'm sure the auditor's office would love it if they didn't have to contact me and be like, hey, you got something in your email box. So can we get this on the agenda for next week?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the agenda deadline's 1 o'clock today, so I will go ahead and put it on the agenda. If you see any changes,
It's tomorrow, but maybe not. Yeah, go ahead and put it on. Yeah.
we'll get it on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, and then thank you so much for working on that. I'm sure the auditor's office is jumping cartwheels, so this is good. All right, the other item relates to, the sales disclosure form that I need to sign.
Yes, and I believe in the 2010 lease financing that was then reissued in 2016, what they need to do to execute the terms of that lease included, once we paid off the debt, transferring the property back to the county. The building corporation has signed off on the quitclaim deed back to the county. They've signed off on the sales disclosure, but the buyer, in this sense, the commissioners also have to sign off on that. So that is something that I wanted to make sure you guys were comfortable with moving forward. All the approvals have happened. It's just they happened a really long time ago. And it also sets up, in the next few weeks, we may have another round of transfers of some of those properties in accordance with what we worked with the CIB.
Okay, we don't need to vote on that, right? Okay.
No, the 2010 version of you already voted on it.
The ghosts of Christmas past, i.e. All right. Excellent. Okay. Let's see if that number's in there. I might have written it down. My item is that there is a broadband equity access deployment program through the state of Indiana. We did our challenge with postcards last year to find people who were underserved, meaning slow service, but they had service, the hamster wheel, AKA. And they already had a list of those residents who lacked access to any decent provider. So that is phase one, and so local companies and not so local companies are going through a bidding process on this first tier. I will note that both Councilmember Deckard and I had meetings yesterday afternoon with all three providers, Mainstream Fiber, Comcast, and AT&T, who are each making a proposal to serve part of Monroe County that is currently unserved. And so I will just be able to say that the map-wise that we're looking at the western part of the county, and specifically the southwestern part of the county, the good folks in Indian Creek Township can rejoice. While this program seems to have a 3-4 year rollout for construction, most of the providers are looking at an 18 months to 2 year time frame to complete their work. There's also a portion of the county near the lake and on the eastern portion of the county that does not have service that will be offered service. So those letters need to be signed off on, and that's it's 5% of their bid package total points, so that they can be considered for being awarded this by the state. So I wanted to ensure that my colleagues were okay with me signing off on letters of support for all 3 of those entities. Okay.
Yes.
Do we need to do a vote on that?
I think I would.
Oh. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to allow me to sign letters of support for 3 entities, internet providers for the BEAD challenge.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. And I will note that the total to the state is from the federal government, so we know thin ice, $868 million
Wow.
from the feds to the state. Then that's divided up. But I think, so the first round is the unserved. The underserved are tier 2 and tier 3 later in the year. But I'm hopeful that our good neighbors who need access to internet will be served very. I'm happy to go ahead and get those letters done and signed. So.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Can we go to the order? Okay. All right. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.